Good evening, everyone. Monday night, once again, time for must-see TV. We've got the Hudson Valley Squares here for the Sea of Tranquility rant. We got 5 of us tonight. Steve Keeler's back in town for the first time in, I don't know, a month or two. What's up, Steve? We got Nicholas Franco, we got Chris Allen, we got Ryan Skow. I'm your host, Pete Pardo. Today we got another fun rant that has been kind of suggested by one of our viewers. And basically the theme of today is we're each going to offer up one band that we feel changed their sound at some point during their career for the better. And then we're also going to talk about bands we feel completely changed their sound for the worse. So I'm going to let the new guy here, who hasn't been here in a little while, Mr. Keeler from Rock Fantasy, go first. And we're going to start off. Let's start off with the bands that we feel changed their sounds for the better. So Steve's going to kick it off. Then we'll go to Nick. We'll go to Chris. Then we'll go to Ryan and finish with me. So Steve, Nick, Chris, and Ryan, go for it.
So good evening, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. And yeah, I'm back. It seems like I haven't been on here in months. I haven't been on a Zoom in months. I haven't even been doing my shows. But this was a tough one for me. A lot of these have been tough lately. I just couldn't wrap my head around a lot of them. And to find a band that's actually gotten better, I mean, I could send you 100 that got worse. And the one I'm picking that I thought got better, even though I love their early stuff after listening tonight, I almost switched bands. It's Catatonia. It's one of my favorite bands. And actually, the guy in Square Number, I don't know what she is on yours, Chris Allo, turned me on to Catatonia years ago with that, what was it, like a box set it was?
Yeah, I think so.
And I do love Blade, like the first album and the second album, which has Michael from Opeth on some of the lyrics, on vocals rather. But I really discovered them on Viva La Emptiness and that era, and I've loved Catatonia ever since. I think that Jonas is a brilliant songwriter, and how he portrays his depression and anxiety and whatever else, and can put it all into words. It just makes it into a masterpiece. So I'm going with Catatonia for bettering themselves, even though I really love their early stuff with the growl and the death vocal.
I couldn't argue that choice at all. I think it's a good choice. I think they did what they needed to do to kind of move on to the next level. I
mean, if they came back and did an album with some growl vocals, I'd have no problems. I heard Skow got in trouble for having a dog on set. I have one here too. And Daisy has been on with Brian Slagle and some of the great rock stars in the country, like Will Carroll.
Everyone loves my dogs.
And look at
just don't make out with Daisy, Steve, because that apparently doesn't go over too well here. You know.
Why was Skow making out with a dog?
So a couple people said. I don't know.
Look at we're just going to cuddle.
Oh, what a cutie.
All right, so we got Catatonia as our first choice. Nick, what do you got?
So I'm sticking with a band that I've come to love more and more over the years, and that is going to be from Bergen, Norway, Enslaved. They began in the very early 90s doing a take on black metal, which was exploding in that country at the time. But they didn't go for the whole Satan, hell, and all that crap. They were always singing about Norse mythology and topics like that. And when they started out, they were very primitive. They had the logo, Hordanus Land. They were doing a lot of
release.
Oh yeah, and then when they came out with Frost, okay, this is very much a raw explosion of fast drumming and blast beats and shrieking vocals. But they always had some kind of a keyboard stuff going on. And then, as they became more popular, they were still dressing up like Vikings there on Eld, okay? And then it became obvious when you read interviews with them that they also liked bands like Rush and Pink Floyd. But in this guy with the sword on the beach and, killing everybody, it didn't really come out until they made an album called Lardrum, okay? This one here, right around late 90s. This one had some, longer passages with almost like Pink Floyd-esque kind of keyboard stuff. And all of a sudden you started to see this element to their sound. They made an album that everybody thought was weird and Monumention, which was very, very, had a lot of psychedelic elements going on. It seemed to all come together though, at the beginning of the 2000s, 2003-ish, they got a steady lineup. And ever since then, they've been exploring prog, with the Viking black metal sounds. Now they have the confidence, they do whatever they damn well please, but they do it so well that I have to say, as much as I love their old ripping, crazy loud crap there that they put out in the very beginning of their career, I think they've gotten only better with clean vocals, with you know, but they didn't do it in a way where you're like, oh, they got soft, right? They still rip today. They can do it all. They blend all their elements together so seamlessly. They've gone well beyond whatever limitations that the, you know, sensationalism of black metal might have afforded them, but they didn't sell out one bit. They win awards in their home country for albums, and I think they're one of the best extreme metal acts around. So I think they changed for the better. Enslaved.
I agree with everything you said, Nick, because when I heard you were doing Enslaved, I really wanted to just copy you.
Oh.
I mean, that's another band that I love their early material too. I can't think of any bands that I really hate the earlier material and like the later material a lot better too. That's like, okay, that was easy. But, you know.
Yeah, I think Enslaved has gotten they just get better and better.
Amazing.
Yeah,
They put out one masterpiece after another.
And one coming soon, a couple weeks.
It's amazing.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Thanks.
All right, Mr. Allo, you're next.
All right, I'll make it quick. My band is a pick from North Carolina, a band called Corrosion of Conformity. Their early stuff was more punk and hardcore influenced, and you know, definitely had thrash trappings. Definitely a Black Sabbath influence. They did this record Eye for an Eye and Technocracy, and you know, I dug their stuff. It was heavy. It was abrasive. But then in 1991, they definitely changed gears. They hired a new singer, and they became a 5-piece, and they put out a record called Blind, which is certainly far more metallic, far more melodic, and has a lot more groove. Still somewhat thrashy, showing even more of a Black Sabbath influence. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I think it's an amazing record. They became a much bigger band, and they started getting on big tours, opening for acts like Iron Maiden and Ozzy. And then on their next record, they changed their sound slightly more on the Deliverance record, and they became more embraced more of the Sabbath side, became more. I get a bit of a stoner band, and really blew up. You know, nominated for Grammys, gold records, and became a much bigger band. And you know, to this day, there are still plenty of people who hate the change in direction. And you know, everybody has their own opinion, and everybody's opinion is valid. But you know, my looking at this whole thing was, you know, it was a change for good for the band, because they sold a lot more records and made a lot more money. Besides me liking it, that has nothing to do with it. But
I couldn't get into the early albums. Never could.
I like them, but not as much as Blind and Deliverance Forward. But you know, they're definitely abrasive. I mean, and it's not. I don't listen to them all the time like I do the newer stuff.
And you mentioned like the stoner thing that they kind of fell into. I think like when Pepper joined the band, it's almost like they took on this little kind of Southern rock thing going as well.
I was going to say,
sure.
it's more like a Southern rock thing to me.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Great band. I love all their more, well, recent, going back almost 30 years, but yeah, all good stuff. All good stuff.
I mean, it's hard to think that, yeah, like 1991 is the new stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan, what do you got?
All right, so my favorite guitarist is in this band, Chris Currie's. It's not Tony Iommi. He's number 2.
All right.
My favorite guitarist is Piggy from the mighty, from Montreal, Canada, fucking Voidvod. So I had a hard time with this one because I'm strictly the only bands I could think of that for me improved, because this is how I am with music. It was Bathory or Voidvod. So I went with Voidvod because they're one of my favorite bands on earth. So their first album, War and Pain, 1984. It's like really vicious, almost like Motorhead, Discharge, like a little hardcore punk, very post-apocalyptic. Piggy's guitar actually sounds like a fucking chainsaw. Then 1986, they come out with Roar, which is probably one of the most ridiculous albums from the whole decade. It's
Yes.
absolute. It's the same upgrade that Dave Lombardo did, going from Show No Mercy to Haunting the Chapel. With this, their drummer Away added a double kick drum, so the drums are much faster, the songs are faster. It's just hell on wheels, fucking violent. But then the next year, they put out one of the most iconic albums of the '80s, I think, thrash albums, Killing Fucking Technology. I added fucking title. But this album is chock full of title track, Overreaction. I know Steve loves Tornado, Forgotten in Space, Blackguards. It's just like one classic after the other. Absolutely perfect album. But they didn't stop there. Then 1988, I believe, they put out my personal favorite album from them, Dimension Hatros. And again, it's got a little bit more of a prog feel in some of the tracks, but it's a little hard to quantify it as strict prog, but a little more musically adventurous. But this one's got songs like Tribal Convictions, Chaos Mongers, Experiment.
Chaos Mongers will blow you away.
Yeah, great fucking album. And then, but they didn't stop there. So now they started from a band that was like chainsaw guitars and like Motorhead Discharge, kind of like post-apocalyptic Mad Max thrash. They put out an album. I wish I had this on vinyl, but I don't. With the fucking Pink Floyd cover, Astronomy to Mine. And it's a great cover, too. It's like actually the first song I heard from the band. I'm only 38, so I didn't get into them back in the 80s. Was actually, Astronomy to Mine. And Nothing Face from, I think, 1989. This one, fucking awesome album. Way more prog rock. There's no screaming anymore. The vocals are much cleaner. I think, even though they got Topic was bands that improved, I kind of find all 5 of these albums in almost equal standing. You put a gun to my head, I'd probably pick Dimension Hatros, but they didn't stop there. Then they put out an album that sounds like something that Hawkwind could write. If you told Hawkwind to write a metal album, they put out Angel Rat, which is probably my least favorite of this batch of albums, but I still think it's a great album. And that's the last album they put out with the original 4 lineup before their bass player, Blackie, left. And they still were great. They actually put out... This is my last one. Just recently, they put out an awesome album called Wake, which is fucking
Great
awesome.
album.
It's right up there with any classic band putting out great albums like 30, 40 years into their career. This album is just as strong as any of them. And it kind of brings it back to Dimension Hatros, Nothing Face, like real adventurous, like spacey, proggy stuff, but it's fucking awesome. So that is my choice for a band that has improved, or kind of like whatever they did, it turned to gold, like almost the Midas touch of metal. They never did anything that I thought was, even some of their weaker albums. And one last thing, in my opinion, they were the best band to ever feature Jason Newsted on bass. He played on 3 albums from 2000, the self-titled, Couture's, and Infinity, early 2000s.
Yeah, I got to see him play with Jason Newsted. A couple times.
I saw him once. And this shirt was a Piggy, unfortunately, their guitarist Piggy passed away back in 2005 with cancer. So King Fally from Deceased had shirts made up, a little tribute shirt to him with a bunch of their art from some of their albums. So
awesome.
Very nice.
Cool. One of my favorite bands on the earth. So that's my choice.
Very cool. Great choice. Great choice. All right, so kind of in keeping in line with what everybody's saying here, I picked a band that I do like their early stuff, but I think that they big time changed their sound over the years for the better. I'm talking about Anathema, the British band. So, I mean, these guys started out in like the early 90s. They were like a kind of like a gothic death metal band with lots of doom elements, real slow and ponderous. You know, the vocals are really slow and growly. They released their first album, Serenades, which is just depressing as hell, and but good though. I mean, good depressing. Then they released the second album, The Silent Enigma. So then they changed singers. They got this band they got the Kavanaugh brothers are in this band. Vincent joins the band. He takes over as lead vocalist. He's still doing kind of the growling thing. But he's starting to mix in some clean vocals here. The music's becoming a little more experimental. Kind of, their like second and third albums kind of remind me of a little like Celtic Frost, Into the Pandemonium album. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of similarities on the vocal styles and the kind of the arrangements. Then in '96 they put out the Eternity album. They completely moving away from the doom and death metal elements. A lot more keyboards, kind of proggy, still kind of gothic in spots, little bits of alternative metal creeping into the mix. But it was like the start of the 2000s, like with Natural Disaster, in 2010, We're Here Because We're Here, Weather Systems in 2012,
Love that one.
Oh yeah, Distant Satellites, and then in 2017, The Optimist. I mean, all these albums are just full of these big, lush choruses and sweeping keyboard soundscapes, and the male and female vocals, all clean stuff. No more doom, no more death metal. This real, just kind of like atmospheric rock, very good atmospheric rock with lots of prog rock keyboards and just amazing vocal harmonies and melodies. And you know, all of a sudden, this band is finally starting to get noticed all over the world. They've got their last bunch of albums have been charting everywhere, you know, in the universe, except for here, right? Of course, because nobody listens to anything good here in this country. And it took them a long time. Took them a really long time to kind of get to this point. And now, of course, you know, thanks to COVID-19, they're kind of like on indefinite hiatus now because of all that's going on, which is a real shame because I think this band really could have and should have been huge worldwide. And I think they were just kind of on that trajectory. So as cool as like the early albums are, and they are, I think the fact that these guys did a complete 180 really, really worked for them.
The first two songs on Weather Systems are fucking amazing. It's like some of the best I've ever heard in my life.
Oh yeah, so memorable too, right? Just, yeah,
it is
incredible.
So catchy.
Incredible.
Yeah, they were influenced by I think their influences of Radiohead and Pink Floyd came out together throughout those years in the middle, and they found their own voice. They really did. Yeah, like you said in those later albums, they're incredible.
Yeah, really good band. All right, Steve, back to you.
So now we're gonna start with bands that were freaking awesome and maybe even got you into really the heavy stuff and turned into, people are gonna hate me for this because I hate doing things and ripping on bands because I'll hear about it in the
Do it. Say it.
Metallica, the biggest metal band in the world. I saw them on tours when they were in a van doing the Kill 'Em All tour. I saw them in Port Jervis. I saw them at a rock club in Middletown when they were a hungry, nasty metal band. And I even still enjoyed seeing them through the years. I remember on Master of Puppets having warming up for Ozzy Osbourne in arenas, meeting them at Glens Falls. And of course, Cliff Burton was the only one that would give us the time of day that we're hanging out in the corner behind the arena. And then, you know, they follow through with all these great albums. They were our heavy metal heroes. And I can remember even the Black Album, they were going downhill, but the Black Album was a solid radio. I didn't really hate that. And then all of a sudden, they come out with Load. I can remember being at a friend's house. We were playing foosball and drinking beers, and there was like an award show on. And we were all kind of psyched because Metallica was coming on. And listen, Black Album's beautiful compared to that next one.
Don't stop there. Tell us about St. Agnes.
Load came out. They showed up on a. Here, go see who's out there.
You don't like new Metallica either.
So anyhow, Load came out. They came on an award show. They had cut their hair. They were trying to look like U2, and they were sucking on bananas. And it was like, how do you just really ruined your whole image as being a metal band. And then you started doing Nickelback like rock before Nickelback did, I think. And I mean, they've tried to regain their thunder. They haven't with me. Some people are going to say, well, Death Magnetic was amazing and the last album, whatever, was great. But to me, they lost it. Metallica were once like that hungry metal band. And there's a lot of good thrash bands from that era still that are still flying the flag. To me, Metallica doesn't fly it anymore. Slagle's mad if he watches this because Slagle still loves them a lot.
They're the single most disappointing band. The single most disappointing band I could ever point to. And it's because Bob Rock, I think that was his name, he told them when they made the Black Album, do you guys want to be a big band or do you want to be the biggest band? He literally said, do this and you will sell out. And he wasn't kidding. They fucking sold out.
And then they had concerts, the Orion Fest, where they wanted to be the only heavy metal band. They totally don't want to be cool about the rest of the metal scene at all, in my mind. But then maybe I overreact. So.
All right, Nick, what do you got?
All right.
Sorry about Daisy. We got dog problems again on episodes.
There's never a dog problem. There's only good dogs.
It sounded like something fell down my stairs, and I'm the only one home other than Linda sleeping.
It's Metallica coming to get you. What do you call it?
I'll be right back.
My band that I'm picking that went in a direction I didn't like, I'm wearing their shirt, Blind Guardian. I'm wearing the shirt today because I still love them. They were as many people probably know, they're similar to, they got their start kind of like with Halloween, German speed and power metal.
Italians of Fear.
And they put out, just one great album after the other. Battalions of Fear, Follow the Blind. Yeah, I don't have Follow the Blind, which is, I just realized I don't have it anymore. But all these albums, look at the artwork. I mean, these Tales from the Twilight World. And, they had a penchant for being expansive and full of cool choruses and arrangements with the speed metal. And I think their entire career culminated with the peerless, amazing Nightfall. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
One of the greatest things I've ever heard in my life. Now, I am an unabashed Lord of the Rings nerd. There's my Gandalf tattoo. So when I heard they were doing basically a tribute to that, I was just forget it. So the arrangements in this album are as orchestral and busy and full of different choruses at different times, and I don't have the musician words, but really complicated arrangements. And I think from there, as many bands, okay, where do we go now? And unfortunately, I think that Blind Guardian began to turn on a bad path with this album, Night at the Opera, which had the big epic, and then there was Silence, which I think was excellent, 14-minute epic on there. The rest of it, it's just all right. And then everything they've done since has been, to me, way too over the top. There's like 18 parts in every song. They're not necessarily bad. A lot of them are good, but they're jammed together to me. And I have nothing but respect for these guys. They didn't do anything for the wrong reasons. They just, in fact, their drummer left after this album. Their drummer, Toman the Omen, Stauch, I don't know how to say his name. He left. He didn't like the direction they were going in, and they kept going down that direction. And they just put out an entirely classical album, no guitars, and they did it as a project. It's not like what they're becoming, but I found that kind of like, it just didn't really work for me. And it's a shame because I think they're one of the best, most talented bands out there. I wish they would just write a goddamn double bass banger like they used to.
They're trying to be too epic. Yeah, they're losing a lot of people. Yeah,
they're losing the plot.
Mm-hmm. Great live to see them. They ripped through their classics. They're on point. I love them to death, but I just don't like. I haven't loved an album of theirs since 1998.
Oh. All right, Chris, what do you got?
That's love. All right, my pick for a change for the worse is probably the textbook for what not to do if you're in a heavy metal band and get a measure of success. And my pick is Celtic Frost. They put out amazing records in the early 80s, like Emperor's Return, Morbid Tales to Megatherion. I mean, they came from the ashes of Hellhammer. So, they were, considered, one of the best extreme metal bands. To me personally, the holy trinity of early 80s extreme metal is Frost and Fate and Venom. And they were doing well. They put out the Into the Pandemonium record in '87, which a lot of people hailed as their masterpiece. I remember in '87, I thought it was a fucking weird record. I didn't really like it. I didn't like them opening the record with a cover of Mexican radio. Yeah. I was like, the song about the barbecued iguana? The fuck is that? Like, Venom wouldn't do that. I didn't get it, but there is some good material on here, and they didn't change that much. But I think because that record was a success, and also Tom G. Warrior blamed his girlfriend at the time, they decided to do the complete sellout. And this record is going for this CD is going for $75 right now on Amazon. They put out the 1988 Cold Lake record, which is affectionately referred to as Cold Fake. And it's like a Motley Crue Hanoi Rocks record. It's not terrible. I mean, I listened to it again last night for the first time in years, and it's like catchy, sleazy glam rock. like the heaviest, darkest, glam rock record ever. But it would have been fine if it was done by any other band in the 80s. But coming from this, extreme metal band, it was just the wrong move. It was absolutely commercial suicide. They completely destroyed their credibility. They completely destroyed their draw as a concert act. And then they did one more record, Vanity Nemesis, which was a step in the right direction, but it's still not a great record. And then they broke up. And they did reunite years later. That's a whole other story. But that's my pick for a band that literally committed career suicide in 1988.
So,
Great
their
choice.
move to commercialism didn't quite work out as well as Metallica's move.
Exactly. 100%. 100%. And listen, if they would have been the next Metallica, there would have been some people like myself who would have been upset. But, the point of Metallica is for every fan of one of us they lose, they gain new ones. So it was a genius move for them. But this move for Frost was definitely not not well thought out. It still blows my mind. I'm looking at it last night. I'm looking at the pictures. Their hair is all teased up. Tom G. Warrior's wearing an LA Guns shirt. Like, how the fuck did this get? Like, how did management and Noise Records and nobody was like, guys, you got something going here. Don't do this. Like, this is a fucking stupid move. To me, this is the cinematic equivalent of Halloween 3: Season of the Witch.
Yeah.
Hey, Judas.
I'd rather watch that movie 100 times.
Right.
Oh, that's a great choice, Chris. That's like the poster child for this show, right? Yeah.
What are we doing?
We're on countdown. We better wrap it up here.
Yeah, no, all right, Ryan, what do you got?
All right, Keeler's gonna not like this one, but my one of my favorite thrash bands of the fucking 80s put out one of the top 10 best fucking metal albums of all fucking time. 1986, they put out fucking Pleasure to Kill. The band is Creator. And they put out some weird albums in the 90s, Endorama, Renewal, that are, typical for any thrash band in the 90s, slower, groovier. They all did it. But then they came back in 2001, I think, with an album called Violent Revolution, which everyone's like, Creator's playing fucking thrash metal again. And they did one, Enemy of God. And everybody's going crazy over these albums. And I hear it, I'm like, this sounds like Arch Enemy, but like even worse. It was like the worst shit. And it just to this day, every time I hear those albums, because it sounds like, I don't know, this is just me being a curmudgeon. I know this is probably not a popular opinion. If anybody disagrees, say so in the comments. But I hear those albums and it's just like, just nails on a chalkboard. It's like, this is like fucking real proper thrash. This is like if you went to a steakhouse and got a real fucking steak properly cooked just as you want it. And like the new albums, like Enemy of God, that's like getting like freezer burn, like steakums that's been sitting in the back of the freezer for 6 months. Just, just absolute, like, So even though they're back to thrash, I don't know. It drives me fucking nuts. And so.
I take it Steve does not agree with that.
I know Steve loved it.
Go listen to your Metallica Reload instead.
I would probably. I was a little too young for the Metallica stuff, so I didn't like those. But the Metallica stuff, I'm like, yeah, whatever. It sucks. I won't listen to it. Load sucks. Reload, whatever. I don't care. But their Creator stuff, I heard a lot. I saw them a couple times because they were, for a while, still pretty good live. And then they play like a whole bunch of new songs. And then they did what I fucking hate when they do this. They jammed old songs together into a medley. Like, here's Flag of Hate. Here's Tormentor. Here's, Riot of Violence. We're only going to play like 45 seconds each. Get the fuck out of here. That's the best stuff you ever wrote. Play the whole fucking song. Don't play like that. And here's, 5 songs from Enemy of God.
All right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
In a couple years.
Time to move on to Pete Pardo here. We're down into the 3 minutes. We got to hear what he's got to say.
All right. So to finish this episode off, my choice from good to bad, all right, is Queensryche.
Yes.
So, I mean, this band comes out in 83 with that EP. They followed up The Warning, Rage for Order, Operation Mindcrime, Empire, even Promised Land, right? So, these big selling albums, great progressive metal, one of the greatest vocalists of all time, great songwriting, right? Top of the world, big tours. Promised Land comes out, grunge and alternative is kind of like, all kind of happening. That album does pretty well, not as good as the other ones. All, you know, they take a couple of years to put out another album, and they figure, well, you know what? Why don't we just jump on this train and try and do something that sounds like what everybody else is doing? So they take 3 years to put out Here and the Now Frontier. It fails miserably because it's like this kind of Queensryche doing alternative, right? And fans just tune out in droves. Chris DeGarmo leaves the band, one of the main songwriters, their co-lead guitarist. They released Q2K 2 years later. That bombs. They released Tribe in 2003. That bombs. Operation Mindcrime 2, Why Did They Bother? That bombs.
Oh,
They do a covers album. They do another concept album called American Soldier that nobody got. They do get dedicated to Chaos. None of these albums sold anything, all right, compared to what they used to. Nobody's going to see them live. They're fighting within the band. Tate's trying to take them into non-metal directions, whatever. So finally, he winds up leaving the band, right? He goes solo. They bring in Todd Latour from Crimson Glory. Now, since they've released, 3 studio albums that are taking them back to their old type of progressive metal music. Fans are tuning in again, right? They're going to see them live. The band's back where they needed to be. But, man, I mean, Chris, you talk about career suicide. It's like here is a progressive metal band trying to jump on the grunge bandwagon, and it killed their career for like over a decade.
And then they just couldn't put anything together that was worth listening to. And once they got rid of Tate, they went back in the right direction. I love the stuff with the new vocals.
Todd's great, yeah, because it sounds like the old stuff.
I loved last year's album. I listened to that a ton. It was in my top, I think, 10 of the year, or top 15.
Yep, exactly.
And I totally had given up on them. Every album was like, oh God, why bother? And I think it was a lot of it was Tate. He just really disliked metal.
Who knows? But that's what it
still
sounds
plays
like.
The Chance every 6 months, but
he plays a Chance and he plays old Queensryche stuff.
Was open,
That's all anybody wants to hear, right?
That's what pays the bills for him. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, we're almost out of time, so I want to thank everybody here for joining us once again on this Monday night. And anybody's got any ideas about what bands that they thought changed their sound for the better or worse, please put them in the comments below. So again, I want to thank Steve Keeler, Nick Franco, Chris Sallow, Ryan Skow. I am Pete Pardo. This is on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time, right? So we'll see you all next Monday night for another edition of our rant series with the Hudson Valley Squares. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.